Hi there, welcome to another Curtis Stage video tutorial. Today's tutorial is in Photoshop, and we're going to be doing what's called frequency separation, which is super important in doing beauty retouch. So let's get started. So I have a couple images for you. I have this image to download and this image. They're very stark contrast between the two, right? This is an image that I took at the Screen Actors Guild Awards a couple years ago. You might recognize her. Looks great, right? This is just straight out of the camera, and normally this is just fine. She has a lot of makeup on, and totally great. But we were going to be putting this in a magazine. This was going to get printed in, let's say, Vogue or something. Even in the events area of a magazine, they're going to want to get it retouched. And while she doesn't need a lot done, if we compare it to this guy, we zoom in, and he's looking pretty scraggly. We're going to make him look really good. He's got great eyes, nice hair. Anyways, we're going to make him look a lot better, make him look a lot younger. We're just going to freshen her up just a tad. She's beautiful, obviously, but we're going to make her look a little bit better. So this technique is going to help us do that. So this is something that you'll see in a lot of beauty magazines, and some people take it way too far. You'll see especially on, well, both men and women. Mostly women though, but you'll see it where it's just extreme retouching and everybody looks fake. I'm not a huge fan of that. I like to have a little bit of realness still in the images. So this technique is really great because it keeps the texture of their face, but what it does is even out a lot of color within their face. So it makes it much smoother and nicer just overall. You'll probably start doing it to your selfies. Okay, so let's get started on this. So first thing we want to do is we're going to let's make a copy of this twice. So our background layer, if we click on that, we hit Command J 2 times. We've got 2 copies of that. Now we're gonna take the second layer here. I'm gonna turn the eyeball off on this top layer. I'm gonna name this layer Blur. So this is gonna be our blur layer, and this is the layer we're gonna primarily do a lot on. And so we're going to do a slight blur, and this is so where we can't see the skin kind of can't see any texture in the skin. So I'm going to zoom in after I've named it. So Command plus a few times, and I'm going to go up to Filter, and then Blur, and Gaussian Blur. And we're just going to go in here, and you don't want to go too far. This is, probably maybe, I don't know, a radius of 1 on this image. So kind of, you got the preview checked. There it is, unchecked, checked, right? So radius of 1, not too much. Maybe a little higher. So the goal here is that we're getting the softness throughout. All right, and I'm going to click OK. So 1.3 on this image. And every image is a little bit different depending on the size and resolution of the image. So you kind of have to play with this sometimes. So I'm going to click OK to that. So I've got that blur. And now on the top layer, I'm going to turn the eyeball back on, and I'm going to click on the top layer. And this layer is going to be what we're going to do as the separation. So I'm going to title this Separation. Okay, so after I name it Separation, I'm going to go up here to Image, and then Apply Image. Okay, we're going to get this dialog box that's going to come up. So we don't, this doesn't matter right now. So what we want this to be here is the source is this, we're on it, right? So we're on the image that we have the source from. The layer, we want to pick the blur. So this is we want to pick the layer we just blurred. So we're on the separation layer, right? We want to pick the blur layer, okay? The channel is going to stay RGB. We're not going to click invert. So we're going to keep the red, green, and blue. You can see that if you could go and individually kind of work with channels. We're going to pick all 3 of them now. And then what we want to do is we want to have our blending mode. Again, blend modes are how layers interact with each other. So you could, let's say a blending mode of multiply, which is what we don't want here, would knock out any lights or whites on a layer. And it would blend, kind of that layer by knocking out whites. we're going to actually do one called subtract. We're going to go down all the way down here to subtract. Okay, it's going to make it black. Don't worry about that right now. And then we're going to leave the opacity at 100%. We're going to put the scale at 2. And then the offset is that we want it gray. So we want 50% gray. So we've talked about this in prior classes where each color is represented between 0 and 255. So 0 is black, 255 is pure white. So right in between of that is 128. So we want that gray. And you'll see she'll come out a little bit here. Now, what we're seeing is with this, if you look closely, you're seeing her texture of her skin. So you don't see her blurred. You see the texture of her skin in there. That's what we want. If I increase the scale here to, let's say, 10, look at, it's too much texture. So the scale is giving me how much texture. And I mean, 1 is fine, but 2 just seems to kind of work the best. I don't know why 1 actually is more than 2. Just seems kind of weird. 30, right? We're getting, you can see kind of if you do something that's, so the scale, I think it can only go 1 to 2. So you can kind of scale this kind of in here. So 2 is what we want, offset of 128. We're going to click OK. All right, so we've got that. I'm going to zoom back out, Command minus. You can see a little bit of soft ghost of her in there. All right, so now we want to set the blend mode on this. And this is where now we're going to start, the separation layer is going to blend mode with the blur layer. So we can experiment with this. I use vivid light. So I go down in here, and again, let me just talk about this area. So this area right here, darken to darker color, is knocking out any lights on a layer. Well, we have 50% gray. Lighten to lighter color is knocking out any darks on a layer, and we have 50% gray. Now, overlay to hard mix is, well, look at hard mix. Overlay here, in this area right up here, is knocking out 50% gray. So we want this area, and it's kind of an experiment. I kind of like either hard light or vivid light. I think vivid light's kind of the best. A little of that blur doesn't show up. Soft light's not enough, and then she looks a little blurry. So I like vivid light. So I'm gonna pick that. It actually doesn't look like much has happened, right? Doesn't look, and she looks a little more blurred. Don't worry, we're gonna fix that. But if I turn the eyeballs off, there's the original, right? And then I turn the eyeballs on, there's the blurred. Now, again, we're going to kind of fix her just a tad here. So now we're going to retouch this. And what I want you to really pay close attention to is, do you see on her forehead where it's a little lighter right here, right? The color tone here is really nice and really even. But just, we were outside at the SAGs and there was these giant lights. And yes, she has a lot of makeup on. If it was me standing there, and I'm very greasy, I'd be shining like crazy. Light would be bouncing off my face. And it would be way too overexposed and bright here. She has a good amount of makeup on, but let's fix this a little bit more. So this is a little bit better here. We're going to even this out. So what we want to do is we want to group these top layers first. So I'm going to click both of them. So I hold down Shift or Command or Control, but Shift and select both of them is fine. Then we're going to group them by hitting the folder here. We've got a group, so that's nice. And now we're going to go and retouch these layers. So I'm going to open this up in the group. I'm going to click on the blur layer, and this is where the retouching is going to kind of occur. So I'm going to click on the blur layer. I'm going to go to my lasso tool. So I'm going to go to the lasso, and we want this feathering on the lasso. So the lasso is going to be a selection tool. Right? We're going to make some selections like that. But I want to have a feather on this selection. So what I want to do is I want to increase my feathering here, and I'm just going to go up, I don't know, maybe about 15, 20 pixels. Now, when I do this and I hit Q on my keyboard, it's a quick mask, Q. There's also a button right down here on the toolbar below the color swatches. That's also the quick mask. So it's not a mask, it's just a quick mask. You can also see that my highlight, my layer is highlighted to say that I have a quick mask on. So this shows me how much feathering I have. I kind of like this 14, 10, 12, 14, something like that. I'm going to hit Q again, get rid of that. Now I can go in here and I can blur this more. So I can add Gaussian blur and a higher level of it. So I'm going to go to filter. I'm going to go to blur. I'm going to go to Gaussian blur. So the first blur we did was just to, by the way, we're gonna kind of get her eyes sharp and stuff again. Don't worry. But the first blur was to help us make this frequency separation. This is really the blur that we want to use to kind of even out her skin. So now you can see if I bring this radius up, look at that, look at her forehead there. Click OK, right, and then Command D deselect, right? Nice. I'm gonna just do a little section like this. Don't want to get too close to her eyebrows. And then I'm going to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And again, I can, if you really do go too far, it starts getting gray. You don't want to do that. So you kind of know when you've gone too far. So for this image, about 4 pixels is pretty good. 4.7, that's fine. Nice. Command D deselect. Look at that. If I turn my group off, there's the original, there's my blurred. Okay. Again, we're going to sharpen her eyes in a minute. So let's get there. Let's get there in a second. So now I'm going to do kind of her cheeks right here. Just kind of go around here. I've got feathering on, right? And I can hit Q to see how much feathering. That looks good, right? I don't want to go up into her eyes. I don't want more blur here. Just want to hit that cheek. So there's my drawing here. And I want to go to filter, blur. And if I like the last blur, I could just pick that Gaussian blur and it would be the last one. But I'm going to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, because I like to adjust it with each one, right? So something like that. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and click OK. Let me get my eyeball back on here. That's too much. Command D. I turned my eyeball off to the group, and that was too much going on here. So let me turn that eyeball back on. Command Z a few times. There we go. And then eyeball back on. Now I'm going to do that blur. So that looks pretty good here. We go filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And you can kind of see you don't want to go too far sometimes. It's going to look fake. I don't want to go too fake. So this one, I think I did this twice now. So maybe, lower. I'm going to go over to this side. Do you see how it evens out the light as well? So I'm here. Got to have that group eyeball on, otherwise you have what happened with me. So Gaussian blur, and I can bring that up, and it's evening out the skin tone. Okay, it's not getting rid of the little, kind of her skin texture. Okay, and let me get her chin. Again, I've got a feather, so I don't need to be perfect here. If I hit Q, you can kind of see it. Great. Again, filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and everyone's a little different here. So I can look. That looks pretty good. I don't want to go maybe 5 on that. Pretty nice. I'm gonna get her neck. Command D, deselect. Go down in here and kind of get this area. So if you wondered how beauty retouching happens, this is it. You can make tons of money as a beauty retoucher just doing this all day long. I don't know, it'd be kind of boring to me, but I have to do it when I take these shots. Sometimes I don't want to post something, sell it to a magazine or whatever, and then the actor or actress go, "Hey, dude, that picture that you took of me was terrible." I want to retouch it, somewhat. So here's before. Let's look kind of, get my move tool, Command minus, zoom out. Again, just looks great. I mean, fine, right? And here's the after. Now, let me get in here and sharpen up her eyes, just a little bit of, I don't want this blur happening, there, right? So that, of course, is going to then be a mask happening through there. So I can apply a mask to group 1. If I just click on that folder and put a mask there, right? White reveals everything on this, right? This is why we put this in a folder. White reveals everything to the left, which is all my stuff in here. and it will, black will hide everything to the left and reveal down below. So now if I go to my paintbrush and I pick black as my foreground color, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to kind of get her eyes here. So you're going to see how this works. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to get just a hard round, straight up regular brush, general brushes. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to paint because I want to get that sharpness of her eyes. You never want, as a photographer, you never want to have soft eyes. The number one thing is always get the eyes in focus. I might hit her. She's got good eyebrows. I want to hit those. I might want to hit the front of her nose. That might have just been out of focus on my image, actually. And then I might want to hit her lips here. Right, nice, looks good. Right, and then check out, get her hair. I'm gonna make my brush a little bigger. Her hair is great, so I don't want that to be blurry, so I want parts of her hair to be in focus. And remember, my brush is 100% opacity, flow is 100. I don't need all of her hair. I just want that kind of closest to the camera, just these kind of nice strands here, just along this edge, and maybe, earring, right? That's a focus for, and then maybe dress. So I'll go down in here and get her dress and kind of do that, right? Because the outfits, the jewelry, all important, eyes, lips, whatnot. All right, so there we got, right? There's before, right? Nice. After. Just subtle, beautiful. All right, now let's tackle this guy. Let's do this, okay? You don't believe me, probably, that this is going to work. This is going to work. So let's do this again. So let's make 2 copies of this layer right here. So Command J, Command J. He has amazing eyes, and we want to definitely sharpen those bad boys up. Okay, so top layer, I'm going to call separation. Let's see if we can remember how to do this, right? Middle layer, I'm going to call blur. I'm going to turn the eyeball off on the separation layer. And I'm going to go to the blur layer, and I'm going to blur this bad boy. I'm going to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. This is going to be, just enough. It doesn't need to be extreme here. So this is this is a fairly big image as well. I did not take this photo. I took the last one, did not take this one, but I had to give us an extreme example here. All right, so I'm going to blur about 3.2. I mean, it seems like I should do more on him, but don't worry. This is just to make the frequency separation. So I'm about 3.5. Click OK. Now I'm going to go up, turn my eyeball on in the frequency separation. I'm going to go to Image, Apply Image. I don't want merged. I want my blur layer. We're going to see him. It's going to remember my last settings. So perfect. It's got 2 and 128 and a blend mode of subtract. Click OK. Awesome. Now I'm going to go up here to my blend mode above my separation layer. So I'm on my separation layer. I'm going to go to my blend mode where it says normal. I'm going to pick vivid light. You can see what some of the other ones look like. Maybe for him, hard light looks a little better, but I'm going to stick with vivid light to keep it the same. So I've got that. Now I want to group these 2 layers. So I'm going to hold shift down, get a folder here, group those 2 layers. Again, we're grouping them because we're going to put a mask on this. He's blurred here, and I want him to not be, right? He's blurred. If you look close, let me zoom in, right? Look at those eyes. Look how sharp they are with the eyeball off, eyeball on. It still looks great, but I want to get those eyes even sharper. Maybe I don't. All right, whatever. So I'm going to do that. We'll put the mask on in a minute, but let's go to the blur layer. I'm going to zoom out. He needs some work. He really needs some help. All right, so I'm going to go to blur layer. I've got my lasso tool, still got my feather on it. This 14 is great. I'm gonna kind of do a selection. So I'm gonna start kind of under his eyes. I don't need to go right under his eyes, because remember, and the way to check, of course, is to just hit Q on your keyboard and see, okay, good, my feathering is not gonna go into his eyes, right? If you feel like your feathering needs to get softer, you totally could. You could bring that feathering up a little bit, right? Hit Q. All right, sometimes you have to redo it. Let me go up a little higher and then do my feathering here and maybe get it a little bit smoother. It's just looks good. Okay, now I'm going to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and we got to get extreme with this guy. Not that, just take it, something like that. I think that's pretty good. 9.9. Okay, good. I think that's pretty sweet. You're like, whoa, really? All right, I'm going to go under his eye. I'm going to get over here. Your mom and dad are going to love this demo. You can just touch up all their pictures now, make them really rad. All right, so blur gallery. All right, I'm keeping that 9.9. I'm liking it. Okay, I'm going to go here. As an event photographer doing lots of events, I had to learn this technique, among others. This is one technique, but I had to learn this technique quick, man, because you take photos of people and they got to look good at all times. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and yeah, nice. Maybe a little less on his forehead. Okay. Command D, deselect. I'm going to get his nose. It's still keeping the texture, right? Look at that texture in there on his cheeks. It's still there, right? Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. There we go. Nice. Let me get the side over here. Oh man, we could use the patch and healing brush tool on him. And I mean, this guy went from possibly being homeless to looking great, looking like he could, conquer the world, at least conquer a job interview. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Nice. Command D, deselect. Chin, probably doesn't need it, doesn't need too much on the chin. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur. I keep going to that blur gallery. Nice. Right? Look at that. Under his eyes, I'm kind of, I'm going to leave that. I don't want it to be, I don't want it to be totally gone. I don't want to lose, if I zoom in, you could, that texture there's fine. Again, mostly what it's doing, before, oh my gosh, after, right? Before, after. It's really just evening it out. You can see all that stuff is still there. So if I went under here, it's kind of evening out the light. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and not much difference there. If I start going too much, it's going to get dark. So look, here's, a little bit, it's still, so that might work. I mean, you can get under his eyes a little bit, this side. Okay, so filter, blur, Gaussian blur. There we go. Okay, Command D, deselect. So you already, right? I mean, look, insane. All right, now let's sharpen it back up. How do we do it? I'm going to close down this group. I'm going to add a mask, our magic masks, of course. We love masks. We got to love them. So I've got white reveals everything over here. Black's going to hide everything here and reveal below. So now I want to go paint with black on my paintbrush. My brush is a hard round. I've got mode normal, opacity 100%. Bring those eyes back. A little bloodshot. I'm not going to, maybe not go in the whites. I'm going to undo a little bit. Maybe just stick here. Just stick there. He doesn't have many eyebrows like Naomi Watts did. We don't have much going on. We can't do much there, right? So that's that on that. Now, if I want to do patch and healing brush, any patch and healing brush isn't going to happen here on this mask. If I was going to do any patch, it's happening on the blur layer, right? So let's just, for instance, let's do the healing brush. Let's say I want to get rid of this age spot right here. There's the spot healing brush is what this is for. Photographers are like, hey, Photoshop guys, we love the healing brush, but could you just make it a spot one really quick? Because we just sometimes need to hit it like that, right? There, a little, kind of works better in some places. So let's see where else. It's pretty good. Let's see about the patch tool. So if I go to the patch tool and I've got normal and source, right, as my selection, I can go down in here. Let's see, what do we got? I mean, I could go in here and just completely, it's going to be kind of the separations in there too. So I can go to the separation and get it there. So you almost have to do it in both. Yeah, I'm going to not do that because it's not going to look real. Again, I don't like to, fully go all out. Maybe in here. So again, you do it in both. Well, maybe let's just try it just in the separation. Sometimes I do it in both. Sometimes I just do it in one. So I'm just going to go here. Command D. Yeah, maybe it's just separation works. I don't think I need to do it in the blur. Let me try it right here. Just get rid of some of these kind of parts on the skin here, and still want texture there. So it's, the patch isn't fully getting rid of. Let's see what else. Yeah, pretty good. I mean, he could use a shave. Can't really do that with him. He could get rid of random hairs, right? He looks pretty good otherwise. Again, if I want to get rid of this one over here, if I go to the separation, I probably maybe wouldn't go so extreme. Maybe just a little closer. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I kind of think he needs it. Command D, deselect. It's like, don't try to completely defy, age. Check that out, right? Pretty amazing. There's before. You didn't think we were going to do this. Now you could sharpen up his hair a little bit too. So you can go to our mask up here, right? You don't have to have the mask closed down to do this. You can have it open up, go back to our brush, and you could, sharpen up the hair so it doesn't look fully weird here. And his hair is nice. He's got nice hair. All right, so we're going to do that. I mean, it's a little greasy. He's got nice hair. All right. So that's looking good. Pretty nice. If we wanted to go one step further, we could take this into the... Okay, so again, guys, this gets extreme. Let's try to keep it, together here. When you turn in this document, you give me something. I don't want the person to look like a Klingon. But let's go to filter and let's go to liquify, and on the liquify, excuse me, let's do this. So that thinks it's the mask, so I'm going to cancel that. Sorry. So if I do this, I have to collapse everything down and merge everything. So if we're going to go to the liquify, we got to be pretty good with this. We got to merge all layers. So forgot about that. Let's go to layer and just say merge all visible. So now we got a brand new thing. And the last step could be this liquify. Watch what we could do in here. We could get in here, since this has got the face tool, face a little wide. Maybe we could kind of bring that in a little bit. Just get him a little, not extreme skinny, but there's what he was. Or there's something just a little bit skinnier in there. Let's go to the nose. Bring that nose in a little bit. Oh yeah, see, right? Just get him a little. How about the mouth? How about let's get that upper lip a little higher. He's got a little bit of a, I don't know, smile will look smile will look weird. Let's just get him a little get a little bigger lip here. I don't know if I want to do smiles. Yeah, no smile. He'll look a little weird there. His eyes are great. I don't think we need to do anything with his eyes. I think his nose, kind of getting his face just a little bit. How's his head? His head, yeah, he already has a pretty weird deal here. What else do I got? I got forehead. That's all the way up. His chin height. I like his chin. Jawline. It's just, again, I like it to be subtle. Eyes, nose, ears. They don't really have an ears thing. So something like that is pretty good. So, kind of what you want to do here. Eyes tilt. There's a tilt to the eyes. So see how I can do that one. Straighten both eyes. There's the left. Yeah, pretty nice. Look, that was good. Tilt kind of works. Our eyes, maybe, do they tilt when we get older? That kind of sucks. I'm not going to do any kind of pushing and pulling on this. I'm not going to liquefy and use any of these kind of crazy tools over up to the left, like the pucker and bloat, because I really think, just taking his nose in a little bit more, straightening those eyes out, getting his head a little bit narrower, just cuts off some time on this guy. Gives him a little something like that, right? Nice. There we go. So there's the before, and if I take it back here, there's the after, right? So pretty nice. So you can go up to edit, and you can go back to the face, redo liquefy. So Shift Command Z. So Command Z, and then Shift Command Z, and you can see the difference. So Command Z, and then Shift Command Z. I don't know, man. That guy looks great. All right. So there's our tutorial on beauty retouching, frequency separation within Photoshop. I'll catch you guys later.